You are listening to Viewing, an audio fiction series written, directed, and produced by John Fitch. Performed by Matthew Johnson. Music by Stephen Bias. This is Episode 1.
A tiny studio apartment. Dark. Clean, but dilapidated. No kitchen, just a sink, fridge, hot plate, and curtained-off bathroom. Gentle street noise leaks through the windows. Someone sleeps on a mattress on the floor. A worn coffee table, a drafting table, art supplies. A loud passing car wakes the sleeping figure. It sits up. This is Scott Young. He's lean, years of cross-country in high school. Now early 20s. Artsy, a kind face that barely conceals deep pain. He stands. His head spins. Strange. He switches on the lamp and moves slowly toward the bathroom. He glances at the drawing table. Street light illuminates something on a sketch pad. He fumbles for the drawing lamp. The top page is filled to the brim with small, rough, hurried-looking sketches. One stands out. A line drawing of a woman's face. She appears to be in her 20s. She looks terrified. Then, in vibrant color, the top of a hill, near the edge of the city. A black-topped road stretching into the countryside. Then a patch of dark red, surrounded by green. Scott gasps. No! He reaches for the page, but catches sight of his fingers. They're stained, bright red. His arms, too. He catches sight of his reflection in the window. What the hell? He stumbles for the bathroom. The light exposes Scott's reflection in the dull mirror. He flinches at the sight. His entire upper torso is deep, dark crimson. What the He touches his cheek, checks his fingers. Just charcoal dust. Shit. He reaches for the faucet. Seconds later, Scott stands at the drawing table, turning pages on the sketch pad. More primitive drawings. Shapes first, then colors. More details. Red blood pooling on green grass. A yellow motorcycle lying on its side. A body in a field, bleeding. A face. It's a young man. He doesn't look so good. Then, a road sign. Highway 32. Mile marker 30. He hears a whisper behind him. Help. He scans the room. No one is there. Well, shit. He rips the page from the sketchbook, stuffs it in his shorts, hustles for the door while he pulls on a t-shirt. Scott pilots his run-down car out of the city into the suburbs. He spots a road sign, Highway 32. He merges onto it, and the highway quickly changes from 4 to 2 lanes. It gets rough, curvy. He spots a mile marker, 29. While the sign flashes past the window, Scott catches something else in the corner of his eye. A large black crow grazes the windshield, then disappears. Scott flinches, then misses a slight curve in the road. He jerks the wheel, locks up the brakes. The car careens into the shoulder, scrapes against a guardrail, and grinds to a halt. Scott rips off his seatbelt, flings open the door, checks the frame, the body. Serious damage. Then he spies the wheels. The left front one is nearly broken off the axle. Shit! He gazes into the darkness, catches a faint cry. Shit. Scott runs down the winding black road. The moon emerges from behind a cloud, reveals fields, fences, forests, a few lonely houses, mobile homes. The boonies. He scans the roadside, then picks up his stride. When he reaches a small rise, he slows his pace. Exhausted, he stops to catch his breath. What am I doing here? This is crazy. He turns back, begins walking back toward the car. Then, from the side of the road, help! A frail voice. He stops, dead in his tracks, listens. Cicadas. Then, help me! The voice again. Hello? Please. The voice is weaker now. Scott steps into the ditch, clicks on his cell phone light. A broken wooden plank fence, a yellow motorcycle on its side, dark patches of red, then a twisted human shape in the field, 10 feet away. Scott bounds into the field, kneels next to the body. It breathes and speaks softly. Help. Scott shines his cell phone light onto the figure. A young man, Lucas. His right leg is nearly torn off at the middle of the thigh. Bone, blood. The man's eyes close. His face, a mask of red tissue. Scott pushes through a wave of nausea and snaps into action. Hey, sir, try to stay awake, okay? Lucas groans, slides into unconsciousness. Scott tears off his shirt, wraps it around Lucas's upper thigh, pulls it tight, dials 911. Scott rides in the front seat of a police car, wrapped in a blanket. A police officer sits behind the wheel. Red and blue lights flicker in the rearview mirror. You know who that guy was? Scott shakes his head. Should I? Lucas Blackburn. Riley Blackburn's son. Scott shakes his head again. The officer grins. You're not from around here, are you? I just moved. Well, most of this city is owned by Riley Blackburn. Him and Jack Swanson. The cop rubs his fingers together. They're rich. Scott nods, then remembers. The drawing. He searches his shorts for it. It's not there. That was a good thing you did. Most people wouldn't have managed. Well, I took a first aid class in college. I didn't know if it would work or... He scans the dark seat for the drawing, then the floorboard. No dice. You done good. Did you see a piece of paper, like a drawing paper? In here? Or out there? No. You could go back out there when it's light. Yeah. Scott gazes out the window at the city, now coming into view. A tall building, trimmed in blue light, dominates the skyline. Dusk gives way to dawn. At the other end of the county, 20 miles away, a burst oil pipeline smolders as firefighters wrap up their hoses. A group of engineers works furiously under bright lights to install a patch for the twisted metal line. Emergency vehicles, law enforcement, and reporters jostle for space in the muddy clearing. Dense, dark woods surround the scene. 30 yards away from the action, a black SUV idles in the gloomy morning mist. Inside, a man sits in the driver's seat. He gazes out the windshield at the busted pipeline. He slides a pistol into his fitted jacket, adjusts the rearview mirror, and gazes at 3 figures in the back seat. This is Cooper Matheson. He knows only one direction, forward. His photogenic face is worn from years of whiskey and sunlight. Alexander, you saw this? He turns to face the backseat passengers, 2 husky men wearing dark glasses, and Alexander, a bloodied 30-something. Cooper hardens his stare. Alexander nods. But you don't know who did it? Alexander shakes his head. Cooper glances at one of the husky men sitting beside him. The man pulls out a pistol and bashes Alexander's face. Blood splatters across the upholstery. That's enough. Alexander groans, passes out. Stop! The husky man stops mid-strike, a dazed expression on his face. Well, check him, you fucking idiot. The man grabs Alexander's face, touches his neck, then shakes his head. Cooper sighs, wipes drops of crimson from his face with a clean white handkerchief. He rams the truck into gear, stomps on the gas pedal. Downtown, a busy tree-lined promenade. At the edge of a grassy park, a small group of quiet environmentalists hold anti-fossil fuel signs and collect change for the cause. Full restaurants, shops, and bars line the streets. Pedestrians wander past buskers, street performers, and panhandlers. Just a few meters away, a large easel is covered with sample drawings. Caricatures. Scott sits behind the easel, seated on an overturned bucket. Watching the crowd pass, he scans the faces, trying to find a friendly one. His phone rings. Dad. Scott doesn't answer. He goes back to the crowd, smiling, waving at passers-by. Draw your picture? No takers. A new text. Dad, ready for your interview? Scott braces himself. Types a reply. All set. Let me know when you're done. Please call me. No more text. Shit. Scott deletes the text thread. Gazes out at the thinning crowd. He opens a browser window on his phone. A web page opens. He scans it. Gazzo Comics. A photo of the headquarters in a tall downtown building. Another page. Gazzo Comics' new artist internship program. Paid 12 months, full time. Scott senses someone standing in front of the easel. He glances up. A little girl, Mary, examines his sample drawings. Her mother, Val, hovers behind her. Scott pockets his phone. Hi, want me to draw your picture? Mother and daughter special. Val texts hurriedly on her cell phone. A bit bougie. She's completely over the street fair vibe. Scott smiles, offers Mary a small stool. Mom, can I? How much is it? 15 for the small, 30 for the large. Please, Mom. All right, just her, not me. The small. Mary sits in front of the easel. Scott peers around it at her. Sweet kid. He starts sketching, quickly. Val fiddles with her phone. What's your name? Mary, with an I. Oh, cool name. Scott sketches the rough outline of her face. Huge in the caricature style. More sketching. He's lightning fast. On the page, Mary sits behind the wheel of a sleek Formula One race car. I bet you like dogs, right? They're okay. What about horses? Nah. Val gives him a look. He grins at her. She frowns, goes back to her phone. Scott finishes up the black and white outline of the sketch. No horses, huh? Then how about... He turns the easel around, revealing Mary, race car driver. Race cars. Yes! Mommy, look! Val glances up from her phone, gazes at the drawing, shocked. Oh my God. This child is absolutely crazy about car racing. It's so strange. I think it's cool. Val scoffs. Mary smiles. How did you know? I get lucky sometimes. Scott turns the easel back around and finishes up. Let me just add some color and it's all yours. Mary beams. Seconds later, Val leads Mary away. The little girl turns, waves at Scott, skips into the crowd, drawing in hand. He returns the wave, counts the cash in his hand. 30. A $15 tip. He stuffs the cash into his satchel, glances back up at the crowd, spots a middle-aged couple. Ma'am, sir. Moments later, an older man hands a wad of cash to Scott. 100. A $70 tip. Cool. Still not enough, but getting there. He calls after the departing customer. Thank you. He stuffs the bill in his satchel, places it at the foot of the easel. He sneaks a quick drag from a vape. Then he spots a lone man. Hi, sir. Sir, good evening. 15 minutes later, the man smiles as Scott hands him a completed drawing. He hands Scott a 50 while he inspects the drawing. That's amazing. Perfect. Good job. How did you know that I... Suddenly, a male figure slams into the easel. It tips toward the customer. He ducks. Scott leaps, secures it. Whoa! Scott looks down. His satchel is gone. He scans the street, sees the figure sprinting through the crowd, the satchel over his shoulder. Shit! The easel crashes to the ground. Scott leaps over it, sprints after the thief. Scott rushes through the crowd, nearly tripping over a curb. The figure cuts down an alleyway. Scott picks up his stride, rounds the corner, spots the figure rushing toward a fence at the end of a dark alley. Hey, stop! He barrels down the alley at full speed. The figure ducks into an open doorway. Scott speeds towards it, grabs the door. A fist blasts Scott in the face. He crumples, head first onto the hard brick walkway. His ears ring, then lights out. A second later, Scott's eyes flutter open. He hears the figure's footsteps receding in the darkness. He stands on shaky legs. The world spins. He clings to the brick wall until his head settles. Scott limps into a dark, grimy entrance hall in a dusty 1940s-era walk-up. He leans his easel and sketch pad against the wall, pulls a pink paper from his mailbox. Late rent notice. Shit. Scott tosses his sketch pad onto the floor of his room, collapses on the mattress, powers on the stereo, rolls over and stares out the window. It tilts slightly. He hears something in the room. He sits up, turns on the light. Nothing. He lies down, passes out. The city. Morning rush hour. Scott hops out of a bus into a busy downtown area. He carries a large art portfolio, wears an ill-fitting suit and tie. He rushes toward a major intersection, disappears into a crowd of pedestrians. He rounds a corner onto the main drag, hemmed in by gleaming skyscrapers. He's met by a large, orderly throng of protesters, marching, chanting, carrying pro-environmental, anti-corporate signs. Oh, God. They completely block the street and Scott's path. Nowhere to go but straight through. He takes a deep breath and works his way through the crowd, aiming for a clear path, away from the action. Sorry, excuse me, pardon. He checks his cell phone. He's going to be late. The crowd winds around a tight corner to meet 4 massive 4x4 pickup trucks blocking the road. Scott is swept into the stalled throng of bodies when a squad of 5 counter-protesters burst from a nearby alleyway and attack the protesters' vanguard.
Fuck you, fucking terrorists! You woke pieces of shit!
Wearing motorcycle helmets, body cams, and face coverings, they tear into the protesters with golf clubs, batons, fists. The crowd goes nuts. They scatter. A small group of protesters, led by a lanky firebrand, Nando Bustos, fight back. Bodies writhe. Blood sprays. The air is thick with noxious fumes. Scott watches as Nando tosses one attacker on the ground and expertly engages with another one. Not the guy's first rodeo. Sirens whine in the distance. Scott rushes toward a street-side cafe. A counter-protester slams into him. He falls, hard. His portfolio, phone slip out of his hands. He dives for them, scoops them up just before they're trampled by the crowd, then dashes for the cafe. The cafe door slams shut behind Scott. A dozen panicked patrons stare out the storefront window at the chaos. Something slams into the glass. It cracks, then splits into several large, jagged pieces. The patrons scramble for cover. The manager rushes to the broken window, stands in between it and the crowd.
Okay, everyone back. Move to the back of the store, please.
Scott works his way toward the back of the room, then spies a TV hanging over the bar. On screen, footage of a damaged pipeline. The Chiron.
Explosives damage Blackborn Energy oil pipeline. Activists suspected.
Scott checks his phone. 9:51 a.m. Crap. He hurries for the front door, peers out the window. The mob has passed. He jerks the door open. A modern high-rise. A crowded elevator. Scott straightens his threadbare tie, adjusts his oversized suit. A fellow passenger stares at Scott, reaches into her purse, offers a tissue, motions to his nose. Scott dabs at his nostrils. Blood. He smiles at the woman, rips out a blank page from his portfolio. In a few quick moves, he folds an origami rose, hands it to her. She smiles. Moments later, Scott sits in a small, richly furnished office overlooking the city. A large neon sign, the company's logo, Gazo Comics, hangs over a sleek metal desk. Behind the desk, Tim Chu. He's confident, well-dressed, clinging to hipster cred as he edges toward middle age. Scott shifts forward to the edge of a chair, clenches his pants with sweaty hands, sketchpad in his lap. Tim thumbs through Scott's portfolio.
Again, I'm sorry I was late. I got caught up in,
The protest. Yeah. They think they're really doing something. Complete waste of time. Tim goes back to the portfolio, points at the signature at the bottom of the page. This says Scott Brooks. I changed my last name recently to Jong. It's my mom's maiden name. Cool. Huh. Where are you from? McKee. Ah. Small town, right? Very. Tiny. About 40 minutes from here. How do you like the big city? Good. It's good. Tim turns a few pages. Scott's head aches. Tim turns more pages. They're filled with finely crafted, almost photorealistic pieces. You're an excellent illustrator. I mean, that's why you made the first cut, right? But, to be honest, we're looking for something unique. Oh, okay. Like what? It's, well, we'll know it when we see it. Oh, Scott flips through the sketch pad on his lap, past a few unfinished new pieces. Do you have anything else? He flips another page. Another. He stops. Oh no. Not now. Not here. The page is filled with drawings in the same style as the Motorcycle Crash series. Vibrant, daring, violent. In the center of the page, a rough sketch of the cafe. The one he was just in, less than 10 minutes ago. In pencil, a drawing of the window breaking, people scattering as the shards fall. Scott's mouth falls open. He doesn't remember drawing this. Tim spies the drawing. Oh, that's interesting. Can I see? Scott slaps the pad shut, glances up at Tim. No, I mean, not right now. It's not ready, but... Oh, okay. Well, when will it be ready? I'm not sure. Tomorrow? Tim stares at him uneasily. Scott clears his throat, searches for words. They don't come. I can't take a quick look? Scott's hands shake. Sweat beads on his forehead. An awkward silence. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Tim slides Scott's portfolio across the desk. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Scott hurriedly gathers his things. Scott slams his apartment door behind him. He grabs the remote control, powers on the stereo. He falls onto the mattress, stares at the cracks in the ceiling, sucks on his vape, pushes back tears. He punches a button on the remote, pulls out his cell phone. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail from Dad. He presses play.
Scott, son, since I have not heard from you, I'm assuming you didn't get the internship. And, well, I think it's time for you to come home. Just to reset, get your legs under you.
Scott stares at an old cardboard box sitting in the corner. Moments later, the open box lies in between Scott's legs. It's filled with sketch pads. He thumbs through one. Each page contains rough, primitive drawings of various violent events. He rips one sketch from the pad, tears it into tiny pieces. His father's voice echoes in his head.
You can stay here rent-free as long as you like.
Another sketch. He peers at it. Hasn't seen this one in a while. A crow flying behind a dark, headless, human shape. He shreds it, tosses the pieces to the floor.
I can get you a job in town with Earl Llewellyn at the bank. I already talked to him. He's holding a spot for you.
Scott grabs his phone, deletes the message, tosses the phone across the room, tears another page out of the sketchbook, starts to rip it, stops, stares at the drawing. It's an unfinished portrait, a younger version of himself and an older woman, black hair, his mother, Jay. This one is finely crafted, tender. He leaves it intact. The next day, a dingy office in a huge warehouse. Forklifts whine in the background. Scott fills out a job application. $10 an hour, 20 hours per week. Hours later, Scott sits at a small computer kiosk in a sleepy printing shop. He fills empty fields in yet another job application. $10 an hour, 20 hours per week. That night, Scott watches the water boil in the old metal pot on the electric hot plate. He turns to a single worn cupboard, grabs the last package of ramen noodles. Across town, a private hospital room is crammed with expensive flower arrangements. Riley Blackburn, a small, reedy man tucked into a tailored suit, sits next to his son, Lucas. The young man rests, deep in a coma. Fresh bruises, lacerations on his face, arms. A blanket covers an empty space where his right leg should be. A tear crawls down Riley's face. He squeezes Lucas's hand. He notices a plastic bag sitting on the floor near the bed. He peers inside. It contains Lucas's personal belongings, wallet, cell phone, and a folded piece of drawing paper. A doctor appears behind him. She touches his shoulder, motions him out into the hallway. Riley stashes the paper in his suit coat and follows the doctor out.
You have been listening to Viewing, written, directed, and produced by John Fitch, performed by Matthew Johnson, music by Stephen Bias, recording session produced by Chad Cogdill, sound design by Alex Furton, Kira Mortensen, and John Fitch. This series is dedicated to Emerson Kennedy St. John. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved. For more information, go to www.viewingseries.com.